Transamerica thing. That was cool.
Just like that?
Similar. It's
Uh-huh.
it's a pyramidal.
It's 4-minute walk.
4 minutes.
All right.
Hey, what is that pyramid building there?
The shard, right? Shard, no?
Not sure.
Shard. What is
Oh, the shard. Like, I guess probably like glass. Shard.
Shard.
S-H-A-R-D, shard. Like a shard of glass. Shard of glass. Don't touch the end. Is it finished yet? It looks that way.
Because what they did 70 years ago is a little bit different to nowadays, so we'll probably do something different, okay? But there's obviously lots of planning meetings going on about that, and we will find out in due course. That's to give you an idea. When we're not providing the monarch with a personal bodyguard, we're here looking after the Tower of London, we look after the buildings, the complex, the people that come to visit. We look after the crown jewels, very importantly as well. We uphold and maintain the customs and traditions associated with the tower, and we pass on its wonderful history to all of you lovely people that want to stand out in -3 and learn about it. Am I right? Wow.
You won't be smiling soon. Morning.
Thank you. Those buildings there, they're known as the special housings within the wall. Directly in front of me there, we've got a top of surgery. Just right there, as I'm looking, we've got a 2-story building. That building there is now the Royal Mint Exhibition. But all of these buildings here were used as part of the first ever Royal Mint. And all the coins of the British realm were designed and produced here, right the way up until the year 1810. Now again, we would have had a man who lived and worked here. He was known as the Master of the Mint. He worked in the ground floor area there, and he lived in that first floor apartment just there. The most famous Master of the Mint ever to work and live here, I think, was Sir Isaac Newton. If you're not sure who he was the inventor of the great British invention, gravity. Well, very well. Now down there to the right, you can see it looks like a street. It's part of the casemate, but we call it Mint Street for obvious reasons. That's the start of the living accommodation where the majority of us live. It stretches all the way around the tower. I, in fact, live just down the bottom there. I have my wife and my 2 lovely children. I actually have 3 children. But one of them's a bit of a Karen, if you know what I mean. No offence to any Karens here. Right, this tower's called the Bell Tower, and it's the strongest of the 13 that stand on the inner wall. It stands on a block of solid masonry 30 feet deep. 20 feet of that is below ground, and 10 feet is above ground. Above that, there are 2 circular prison chambers, and the walls are 10 feet thick at the base and 8 feet thick at the top. Prisoners have been held inside both of the chambers here. For example, Sir Thomas More, the one-time Lord Chancellor of England, he was held in the lower chamber, and at the same time, and for the same reasons, his friend John Fisher, Bishop of Rochester, was held in the upper chamber. Both of those men brought here in 1534, who were made to suffer terribly. But they were imprisoned very simply because they refused to abandon their religious beliefs. They refused to accept Henry VIII as the head of the Church of England, and ultimately, which led to their execution, was the fact that they refused to sign the Act of Succession, the document which acknowledged Anne Boleyn to be the rightful Queen Consort. June and July of 1535, both men were led out onto Tower Hill and publicly executed from cargoes could be unloaded here in relative safety. Originally, this was known as the Watergate, but it became known as the Traitors' Gate during the Tudor period. And that was due to the large number of alleged traitors who entered the mighty fortress through those gates. Among them, no less than 4 Queens of England: Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey, and young Princess Elizabeth Tudor. Our dignitaries of the church, elder statesmen, politicians, other members of the royal family, there would have been no exceptions. They would have all travelled down the River Thames from their trials at London's Guildhall or the Old Palace of Westminster. Passed through those gates, landed at the stairs, and at the top here, they would have been met by the yeoman jailer and an escort of yeoman warders. Then we would have taken them through the archway behind you. We'd have put them in the cells and the dungeons there to await for whatever fate might befall them. And as I said, for the majority, a short journey out of the tower to a place of execution. This rounded tower here is called the Wakefield Tower. It is probably more famous tower in English history, though, for being the murder place of King Henry VI. He was stabbed to death on the 21st of May 1471 whilst he was praying alone in his oratory. That is a small private chapel. Now, Henry VI is not remembered for being a warlike king. He was an academic man and a religious man. And he's often referred to as the saintly king. Sometimes he's known as the mad king. But he was the founder of Eton College in Windsor and King's College, Cambridge. And every year, on the anniversary of his death, we get together with the scholars and the deans of those two great places, and we celebrate something that we call the ceremony of the lilies and the roses. It's where we place white lilies for Eton and white roses for Cambridge on the spot where he's reported to have died. The flowers then remain in place for 24 hours. Then our keeper of the crown jewels comes, he gets them, he takes them away, and they are then burnt. Well, we think he burns them. I think he gives them to his wife. Because that's what I would do.
Smart man.
Right, the square tower behind you is the infamous Bloody Tower. This one used to be called the Garden Tower because it overlooked Lieutenant's Gardens. It became known as the Tower of Blood during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. And that was really to commemorate the many, many tragedies that have occurred inside of there. For me and my colleagues and lots of people who come to visit, the most tragic story of all, we think, is the alleged murder of the two boy princes in 1483. King Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, who were only 12 and 9 years old. They were smothered to death whilst they were living in the upper chamber of that tower under the protection of their uncle, Richard, the Duke of Gloucester. The following morning, their bodies were taken away by a priest, taken to the south side of the White Tower, sealed down into a chest, and that chest was then buried deep beneath a secret staircase. That is where that chest remained, undiscovered and untouched, for 191 years. It wouldn't be until 1674 that some workmen discovered that chest. They opened it. Her 19-year-old husband dragged, kicking and screaming from that tower there. He doesn't want to go, but he's dragged up onto Tower Hill. A short while later, she hears a huge cheer. She knows her husband's dead, his head's been chopped off. A short while after that, as she looks out here, she sees her husband's headless body on a handcart, being pushed the same way we've walked, taken to the Chapel Royal of St. Peter, Ardvincular, just over there, where a hole in the ground is opened up and the body is tipped into it. But if all of that wasn't anguish enough for that poor young girl, every time she looks across here that morning, she can see the carpenters busy building the scaffold site for her own execution later the very same day. 12th of February 1554, a very sad and a very tragic day in our English history. Folks, on that cheery note, I can tell you those three Queens of England are buried in there. Three Queens of England, two saints buried in there, amongst many, many others. Now, like I said, I want you to go in there a little bit later on. You can have a walk around. It is a lovely chapel. It's a Tudor chapel. It was built in 1519. The old chapel was built in 1287 on the other side of it. Destroyed by a fire, 1515. That was built in 1519. Opened its doors in 1520. It's 503 years old. Inside is original Tudor architecture, and as you walk out the chapel, you're going to see by the doorway a large brass plaque showing you the names of 33 people. The 33 people that we know were buried inside of there. I'm going to fast forward very, very quickly because I've gone over by 10 minutes. And fast forward to 1876. Queen Victoria comes here to pray. She goes in there and she's not happy. So there's some things going wrong. So she orders a royal commission to change things, to get things back to their original Tudor glory. One of the things that's going wrong seriously is the floor. It's starting to subside and give way. So they lift the flooring up and they start to find bodies. Nothing new there, I've told you that's where bodies were buried. The old crypt, which is where the old chapel used to stand, they go into there, they dig that up and they find more bodies. That grassed area just behind you there, they have to dig that up and they find some more bodies. All of the bodies that they find, they get together, they've exhumed them, they get together, they put into 2 lead caskets and we reinter them, or they reinter them back into our crypt. Folks, as you leave that chapel, you're going to see that brass plaque. Shows you the names of 33 people. However, during the Royal Commission of 1876, they exhumed nearly 2,000 unidentified human remains. It's been written in history that that chapel is one of the saddest places on earth. I've cheered you all up again. Folks, like I said, we've gone over. I only wanted to keep you for about 35 minutes in this weather. We're going to bring the tour to an end. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's very short and sweet, but later on we're going to do even less because we're probably going to go straight into the chapel, or we might go into the chapel a little bit later, but we're just going to continue to do these, I think. I'm not going to go in there. Like so I'm going to bring the tour to an end. I'm going to hang around for about 5 minutes. If you want to ask me a question, please feel free to do so. If not, then please, thank you for your time. Go off, enjoy the Tower of London, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Stop it! Don't do it.